All right.
So welcome to the 2018 Master Gardener Training across the state. We have 24 different sites logged in tonight, so it's pretty exciting. If you could, as the coordinator of those sites, just type in how many people are in your room in the chat box also. I would really appreciate kind of getting a head count across the state. I also have the slido.com going, so log into slido.com and it is code T607 to participate in our activity tonight. I will get that first poll going. And it should be asking you what county you are watching this in. And I will give you guys a few minutes to answer that question. And it should be showing up on your phones. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna quit that one. And the next one I want to do is ask you what your email is. So type in your email so we can figure out how many people are here. I will let that kind of roll for a little while. And I'm going to introduce Morgan. She is with the Morgan Hartline. She is with the she's here on campus. She's with NEP and SNAP Ed. So she actually started this great program that is a co-collaborator with the Master Gardener program. And she's going to tell you all about these great community gardens that we are working on across the state. So it's all yours, Morgan.
All right. I'll show my face here for a minute. Hi, everyone. Just wanted you to get a picture of me. This is not my lovely decorated house. I am in Arlington, Virginia, joining you. So I don't have snow myself, but I'm told I will get a lot of snow tomorrow. And luckily, I don't fly out until Thursday, so wish me luck on that, fingers crossed. But I'll stop video so it's not terribly distracting, and we'll get started. So I'm going to talk to you about the Cultivating Health Our Way, or the CHOW program. And that is a program partnership of Nebraska Extension Master Gardeners and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Education. And I'm really excited to be here and talk to you guys and give you more information about the program. So, like Terry said, I'm Morgan. I'm a registered dietitian and assistant extension educator with the Nutrition Education Program. I am not funded by the state. I am funded through the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program Education and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention 1422 grants. So I'm all soft money right now. And my position is to be the coordinator of food environments work in the Nutrition Education Program. Among other things, I also coordinate the social media work, and food environments work can include anything from the gardens that I'll talk to you about today, or youth gardening curriculum, or healthy access grocery stores. So those of you who are funded by the CHOW project this year have 3 required trainings to go through. We have Introduction to CHOW and Working with Pantries, and that will actually be taken care of tonight. And then later in February, you'll have a Good Agricultural Practices, or GAPS, training for urban gardeners. me slide through. Okay, I've got to hide this. Okay, that helps. So for the first half of this evening, here is the agenda. I'll start with talking about hunger and food insecurity, kind of on a national level, and then I'll go into Nebraska. I'll tell you about SNAP and introduce you to SNAP Ed, which you've heard me mention a few times and you might be a little confused about. How does SNAP Ed work in Nebraska and what is NEP, which you may have heard of, and then NEP programs. So I'm going to start off with defining food insecurity. This definition that you see on the slide comes from Iowa State, but there are a lot of definitions of food insecurity. I like this definition because they added that foods need to be procured in socially acceptable ways. So if someone's hungry enough to barter foods for favors or look through waste bins to get a meal, even if they are getting enough to eat, that's not really food secure. Feeding America is an excellent resource of information on food insecurity. It's got definitions, links, and resources. A lot of the information I'm going to talk to you about tonight comes from Feeding America. They have a lot of great statistics. In 2014, 43% of food insecure people in Nebraska were above the poverty threshold, which would disqualify them from SNAP benefits. So that could mean making a choice between paying the electric bill or eating, which is kind of a scary situation to be in. So a common question that we get in our nutrition education programming is, how can someone be both hungry and obese? Typically, people who live in poverty have access to enough calories, but they don't have access to enough nutrition, and that's kind of an important distinction. So the foods that they're able to access are refined or packaged, they're processed quickly by the body, and that means that they're often hungry because your body isn't slowing down that digestion process. It's going to go through your stomach quick, and you're just going to be hungry again really fast. If they have limited transportation options, their closest grocery store might actually be a convenience store, which will have limited healthy options. And further, if they have access to emergency food services, those services are often given donations of packaged foods because they're shelf stable, or they might be given day-old breads from bakeries who don't want to sell those items. These items are often refined foods, meaning that they've been stripped of their nutrition and could also be high in sugar, fat, and salt. And this picture I actually found online is a really good demonstration of a typical donation drive bin. And you see these around campus or maybe around your hometown. The pantry here is being given high-fat cheese sauces, white pasta, high-sodium canned foods. Donations are, of course, appreciated, but it's up to the pantry to request higher need items and healthier items. There is a program for healthier pantries being piloted in Nebraska right now, and it's having some good success, but pantries are apprehensive to request these items because they fear they won't get enough foods to feed their clients in general, and it's kind of a balancing act. They would rather have enough food than worry about getting the healthiest food. Chronic hunger has far-reaching effects in both children and adults. Hunger impairs academic development. Food insecure children are twice as likely as their well-nourished peers to be referred for special education services. This happens especially in younger children who've not developed coping mechanisms for dealing with difficult situations. Additionally, hungry children are more likely to repeat a grade in school and experience developmental impairments in areas like language and motor skills. Chronic disease is often cited as an effect of food insecurity, and it should be, as food insecure adults more likely develop chronic diseases, but their mental health is also affected, and that's not something that's usually talked about. And depending on the community you live in, it's kind of getting more attention, which I'm really happy about. Adults and children who are food insecure may both experience higher levels of aggression and anxiety because of that. In Nebraska, 45% of families with children under 5 living in poverty are female-headed. Females may not eat in order to feed their children, and as a result may experience mental health problems at a greater rate. There are high risks in pregnancies associated with food insecurity, especially low birth weight. Food insecurity during pregnancy is associated with lower IQs, diminished adult height, and adult obesity. These risks do not change if the family becomes food insecure after the child is born. So it kind of writes the child's genetic code in the womb. The risks don't change. Food insecure children have more headaches, colds, ear infections, and fatigue. They're at higher risk of developing anemia and asthma and of being overweight. A child who experiences food insecurity while they're a toddler are more than 3 times more likely to be obese by the age of 4. I'll pause here for a moment. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat, so if you have any questions, kind of when I hit a different topic area, I'll pause and check the chat. Feel free to answer or to ask me any questions. I'm happy to answer them. So there is a cost to food insecurity. The U.S. economy loses an estimated $130.5 billion per year due to food insecurity. This is due to sick days, lost production, and retraining people. Maybe someone's lost too many hours in their job. You need to rehire, and retraining people costs a lot of money for those companies. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm curious. I know you have the slides in front of you, so I hope you don't cheat. But I'm curious, how many households do you think, SNAP households in Nebraska, have children? And type that in the chat box or speak up. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. You can give me a percentage too. It doesn't have to be a big giant number. All right. So we've got 30 and 90% for guesses, 90%, 30 to 40, 85, and 30%. 75. All right, so 14% of Nebraskans are below poverty level, which is just slightly lower than the national average of 14.8%. And that's recently risen in Nebraska in the last couple of years. So what does it mean to be below poverty level? Just to give you an idea, this means that a family of 4, the annual household income is just over $24,000. 20.7% of kids under the age of 5 are below poverty level in Nebraska. And unfortunately, this number is also growing. Children under 5 and single working mothers are the most affected by poverty in Nebraska. And 48%, those of you who guessed between 40 and 50, 48% of households that receive SNAP benefits have children in Nebraska. And additionally, 7.8% of adults 65 years and older are also below poverty level. Oop. Okay, so I'm going to take this opportunity to have a discussion break. So in each of your counties where you are, I'd like you to discuss with your peers if you've observed the effects of food insecurity before and what were the circumstances. So I'm going to start a 5-minute timer, and I will come back to you in 5 minutes. All right, so I'm curious to hear if anyone has a story to share or if they heard something interesting. You can type it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself and go ahead and speak up.
Morgan.
Yes.
This is Kelly, this in Platte County. And in the circumstances that were shared in Platte County were the number of youth that attend. We have a free lunch program during the summer. And
Yes.
there's a huge number of students or youth that attend that. The circumstance, they've observed it with the number of free and reduced lunches in high schools in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other circumstances were senior citizens where they have to choose where to spend their money on food or medicine or healthy food versus not so healthy food because it's cheaper. Those are some items shared in Platte County.
All right. So you've seen it all across the spectrum. Have you seen numbers rising in Platte County?
We don't feel we have anything to compare it to, so we're not sure.
Okay. Okay. I saw another comment that some types of food sources are requested because people don't have a means to cook or store certain foods. That's a very good point. And that's something that I actually talk about a little later in our discussion. I'm curious, Terry, when you ask what about food deserts, are you asking about them in general?
No, that was a question that was on the Slido. Questions.
Oh.
That was just from someone. I don't know what.
Okay, okay. So food deserts, I can give a general rundown. It kind of depends on who you ask. The USDA definition, we don't generally care for in the colleagues that I work with. Because it's a little wonky and it's hard to define a food desert. So it says that X% of Nebraska is a food desert when really a lot of people don't live in those areas. So if you were to think about the interstate area between Lincoln and Omaha, there's kind of a lot of dead space there, and near like the Aerospace Museum, they consider a food desert, which is a little odd because no one really lives over there. So another thing that we like to talk about is food swamps, where maybe the closest food source you have to you is a convenience store, like I mentioned before, where you can eat Cheetos and hot dogs, but you can't really get fresh fruits and vegetables and the foods that you really need. Carol, I'm glad you brought up Voices for Food. That was a program that I brought up a little earlier about the Healthy Food Pantry pilot project that we have going. The bus route and how long it takes to get to the store, yes, is a very good point. And not knowing what to do when you get fresh produce in the pantry, all good points. I'm glad that we have this discussion going. So I'll move on for now, but I'll keep my eye on the chat. Okay, so for those of you who may not be familiar, I'm going to go over what is SNAP. SNAP is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. It's what we used to call food stamps. And instead of stamps, participants now receive an electronic benefits transfer card, or EBT card for short. These cards work like debit cards, and funds are automatically added to the card on a monthly basis based on the alphabetical order of the person's last name in Nebraska. So for hungry people, what are the relief efforts that we have in Nebraska? And the Food Bank and Food Bank for the Heartland are actually going to be joining me as guests a little later, and they'll go into a little more detail about the food banking system here in Nebraska, but I can give you a little rundown here. So for someone to qualify for SNAP, a household must be at at or below 130% of the poverty line. So for a family of 3, that comes to about $26,200 of income per year. Disability, unemployment, child support payments, and Social Security payments are taken into consideration, and they're considered income when looking at household income. So in Nebraska, we have about 174,000 people receiving SNAP from the last stats I got a few months ago. WIC, the Women, Infants, and Children program, is available to pregnant and postpartum mothers, breastfeeding mothers, and children up to 5 years of age. And I've got the numbers of WIC participants here in Nebraska. Generally, food banks provide food and resources to pantries and backpack programs. They receive their food from various sources, including the USDA, and donations of both food and cash. And those are kind of some of the other resources that they might get. And I noted the grocery store, charitable giving, and places like bakeries and things like that. So SNAP Ed, you've heard me say a few times. SNAP Education is a federally funded program. It's a sub-portion of SNAP, and each state is given a certain amount of dollars for their SNAP Ed program based on the amount of SNAP participants in the state and the state population. Unlike the Women, Infants, and Children, or WIC program that I mentioned earlier, the SNAP program does not require nutrition education to receive SNAP benefits. So we have a lot more people on SNAP than we do on WIC, of course. And so to require that education would be very difficult in order for them to receive benefits. So we try and reach them through partner organizations and things to make sure that they are educated as well as we can. So the nutrition education program, which you've also heard me mention, is funded by SNAP Ed and also the Expanded Food and Nutrition Education Program, or FNEP. These are federal grants that we apply for and report to each year, and they fund all of our staff across the state. I think we have somewhere between 40 and 42 staff right now, including us at the state level. The audiences that we serve are low-income youth, adults, and older adults who receive SNAP or WIC benefits, or who are eligible to receive those benefits. And that could mean that they dropped out of the SNAP program, but they're still kind of on that poverty line. Maybe they use food banking or food pantry services, and we kind of reach out to our partner agencies to reach them. So why do we have SNAP Ed? Like I mentioned before, people in poverty are at increased risk of obesity and chronic diseases like heart disease and diabetes simply by being in poverty. SNAP and WIC are available for limited amounts of time, depending on income level, household size, and criminal history. And if you pay attention to the legislature at all, that's kind of always changing and flowing depending on the newest bills. And I believe this year they have a bill to expand the SNAP program, and I don't know where that'll go, but we're always kind of keeping an eye on that to see where we fall in those lines. The nutrition education program currently has a presence in 28 counties in Nebraska. We serve areas with the highest rates of low-income residents in the state, and each county has different programming depending on the county's needs and partner resources. So we break down our programming into youth and adult direct education, childcare, schools, and food environments. And so you can kind of see in this map where we are and the types of programming we do. The food environments, or my area, are the little blue dots. So we're kind of clustered all throughout the state, and we update this map as often as we can. We have a lot of staff changes here and there, like anyone in Extension. So what do we teach in the nutrition education program? Our program uses Choose My Plate as a guide to teach nutrition and physical activity, food safety, how to plan meals, how to read nutrition labels, and how to save money while shopping at the store. We also go into cooking at home. We provide low-cost recipes like the ones you see here on the slide and tips to maintain an active lifestyle. We also reach kiddos who go to public schools that have 50% or more of their students participating in free and reduced priced lunch meals. And we work with communities to influence local policy system and environmental strategies that encourage healthy lifestyles for everyone. And so the CHOW program is a good example of that. Other examples could be school wellness policies and working with child care centers to improve their environments. So finally, I get to the CHOW program. One way that you as Extension Master Gardeners can work with SNAP Ed and work to fight hunger is the CHOW program. So CHOW provides funds to Master Gardeners, Extension offices, and food pantry partners to grow and maintain community gardens for the sole purpose of donation. The CHOW program has 3 main goals, and that's to increase the amount of fresh produce available in emergency food access sites, to connect with partner organizations and increase Extension's reach, and to partner Master Gardeners with SNAP Ed. Typically, it's hard for pantries to procure fresh produce due to the accessibility and shelf life. So if a pantry does have fresh produce, it's usually on its last legs. And if anyone's worked in a pantry, the food bank does have some fresh produce, but again, that's kind of donated last minute, and it doesn't always look the best. It's not terribly appealing sometimes. So this year's CHOW timeline started in December with the release of the applications. At that time, Master Gardeners reached out to potential partners like local public health departments, food pantries, Extension, Nutrition and Health, and other anti-hunger organizations. Then their group of stakeholders met to discuss produce needs, delivery schedules, staff capacity, and coordination at both the garden site and the emergency food access site. They created a purchase list, a budget outline, and strategies for their project. Applications were due mid-January and announced the following week. All participants are required to view this training, as well as food safety in the garden. After that, they're free to purchase the items in their budget and begin their gardens. To evaluate the program, I'll be conducting regular follow-up and consultation with gardens. The gardens will record the pounds of produce they've donated, the number of partners that are involved in their projects, the number of participants who go through the pantries, and the number of hours volunteered to make this possible. At the end of the season, each site will report its numbers to the SNAP Ed evaluation system, what we call pairs, and that's something that I'll provide technical assistance with. The SNAP Ed program runs on a fiscal cycle that ends on September 30th, so reporting is due around October 10th, and any produce taken from the garden after that point will be counted to next year's contribution. A little confusing, but I'll help keep it in check for you. So when planning for CHOW, here are some good questions to consider when you're starting to plan your garden and what you're going to plant. What's easy to grow in Nebraska? What can last on a food pantry shelf? What do the clients want to see? What are they used to seeing, and what do they know how to use? So for allowable expenses, this isn't a complete list, but it's a good general breakdown. So the SNAP Ed grant that these projects are being funded off of has some limitations, and we try and help that with some extension dollars for anything that we need. So allowable expenses through SNAP Ed are seeds, seedlings, and plants. We can purchase soil mulch, fertilizer. We can put a fence up to protect your garden. We can purchase small tools and large equipment for under $1,000 each. We've had gardens purchase irrigation and small tillers to help them out, scales to weigh your produce, and harvest bins to pick your produce and have that kind of basic number to start your scale off of, and makes it easy to collect your pounds. You can provide trainings, and that includes Extension Master Gardener trainings, but then I just need to see the agenda to make sure that SNAP-Ed is okay with it. We can pay for mileage to transfer that produce from your garden to the emergency food access site. And then, of course, any promotion and educational materials that you might need for this project. So I'll pause here for a moment to see if anyone has questions, and you can type in the chat box or go ahead and unmute yourself. Okay. So how can you get involved? Of course, planting, weeding, harvesting for the gardens, and then delivering to pantry sites if you are able. There are 2 funding categories that our applications go through. There's the grow category, where you convert, maintain, or start a donation garden. A lot of these gardens are on shared land or donated land. We have a garden on a hospital. We have some on city property. We have some that are connected to churches and food pantries themselves. So there's a lot of opportunities there. And then there's the connect strategy. So say you don't have land yourself, or you know someone who has land, and you know a food pantry, but they're not communicating, they're not getting together, and you have the ability to connect them and really get things going. And we'll fund that too. A lot of the applications that I got this year were a combination of both of these strategies. Excuse me. So I'm going to pause for a second. I see a lot of chats coming in. All right, let's see. So Carol says tomatoes and radishes were popular in the Dakota County site last year. There were, let me see, there were 7 applications that were received. There were 8 applications that were received, and there's one I'm still working with. I'm hoping we can get all 8 approved this year. And yes, there are people on this call who are participating in the program this year and last year. So is anyone interested in hearing kind of a few people from last year, their take on the program? I can certainly pause and let them give a rundown. All right, Carol, are you able to kind of speak to your experience from last year?
This is Carol. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. We do have a master gardener here that has actually runs our big garden that we do that. And you want to come closer to the computer so they can all hear you?
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Is this Marion?
Yeah, this is Marianne.
Hey, Marion.
You know, it's a lot of fun. The biggest challenge, I think, is probably coordinating, getting people to come when their work needs done, because you never know what the weather is going to do. I guess I say to people that there's always something that needs done in the garden. When you have time, and there's something to do, but then that doesn't seem to work as good as if you had a scheduled date. But you know, probably my biggest challenge, but plant it and they will grow.
So you want to tell us a little bit about what all kinds of food you grow in that garden?
Terry, is there anything that you would add? If you're still there.
I'm not sure who she was. Was she talking to me?
Terry James, if she can hear me or not.
I'm here. I knew you were gonna say that, and I was in the other room. So, actually, the Backyard Farmer Garden participated last year, and we actually had really good success. We teamed up with Produce from the Heart to come and collect our produce. So we were lucky enough we didn't have to take our produce anywhere, and he came twice a week to pick it up on Saturday mornings and then on Tuesday nights. And then we also teamed up with the television show Backyard Farmer and asked homeowners to bring their extra produce to the garden on Tuesday nights. And then we collected homeowners' extra produce and then sent it off with Produce from the Heart. So we did it 2 ways. It was very successful. It works really well. It's great to be able to team up with another part of the extension and to show master gardeners that we're all just not horticulturists in extension. So
awesome. I see a few questions about where do you learn about CHOW and if there's another opportunity. So I tried to send it out to as many listservs as I could, and I'm sure I missed some of the bigger ones. I sent applications out around early to mid-December. The application process is pretty short, and I'm trying to kind of tighten it up to make it easy and make sure that all the applications kind of look the same. There may be opportunity for additional funds, but we're hesitant there was recently a, what do you call it? God, Terry, what did I say earlier?
budget reduction.
Yes, budget reductions and things have kind of taken a hit to the SNAP-Ed grant, but I will know next week whether or not I can release additional funds, and I will throw that out to Terry and she can get it out to all of you. But I'm glad to see interest in the project. This is really exciting.
You have to remind them only one person per county.
Yes. Oh, yes. Good plan. So yes, we only allow one application per county. And that's just to encourage everyone to kind of work together and make it as big a project as you can. If you believe that your county is too small to really ask for funds alone, you can certainly partner with another county or 2 other counties and apply as a dual or tri-county area for that if you're certainly if you're out west and you're a little more spread out. So for involvement in these projects, I encourage as many partners, especially from diverse backgrounds, as you can get. So partners like the Nutrition Education Program, if you have anyone in your local extension office, local public health departments can be a great partner, food, nutrition, and health extension educators, and people from 4-H, and especially 4-H youth who need projects and need things to work on. So for evaluation, of course, being a part of a federal grant, it's really important that we evaluate what we're doing and how we're spending our money to make sure that the people at the regional and federal offices are happy with what we're doing. So each awarded project weighs and records the pounds of each cultivar that they grow and donate. Then at the end of the year, this can be turned into a dollar value that we can report to Extension and our funders, and this is a number they really like to see. So last year we grew a little over 18,000 pounds of produce that was donated to emergency food access sites, and that was valued at a little over $23,000. So then I can also I can use that to show how the grant funds are an investment into the community, and that also gives me kind of a cost to outcomes ratio. Project sites also record the volunteer hours put towards the project, and for master gardeners, that's really easy since you already have a system to record your hours anyway. And then finally, emergency food access sites that you donate to should be keeping a record of the number of people who use their services each week or month. And that's an easy call to that partner. And they all have kind of their own way of tracking those participants. But then we can use that number to show how many people we've impacted across the state with these programs. So if you're working with a CHOW garden, there are some tips for choosing crops that I think Terry helped me write this last year. So when you're considering choosing crops for your garden, think about how much you can donate and how you can get as much as possible into the hands of the low-income people. So think, does the item need refrigeration to last more than a couple hours? Or will it still look okay on the shelf? Consider that not all pantries will have air conditioning, and you might be delivering to a small room on a hot summer day. What will that do to the produce that we've chosen? And I've been in some pantries middle summer, and it gets hot in there. Remember also that not all clients have access to cooking items or stoves or microwaves. So what items do they recognize? What items can be eaten out of hand or eaten raw? And what can be prepared easily? This won't be the case with all pantry clients, but we want to make sure that we have a good variety of options for those who need it. The items in the right-hand column were recommended by Terry for how easily they can be grown in Nebraska and how well they can last on a shelf. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to look at the chat again. Okay, so a question about how public health, what their role would be. So say you're in a county that doesn't have a nutrition, extension nutrition, or nutrition education program person. Public health might be interested in doing some education either at the pantry or at the garden. There are some local public health departments who are working directly with the pantries to try and get them to increase their healthier options. Specifically, there's 5 or 6 across the state who are also working with Vanessa Walinga. She's kind of my counterpart here at the state. And one of their goals is to increase healthier pantry options. So that's just a few examples. And as far as partner support, they would, I would hope, help you with the garden, help you figure out what types of produce should be planted. Maybe they know the clients that you're going to be serving in the community. So maybe they work with a high Hispanic population. They know the types of foods that they'll want to see, so they can kind of help with that. They'll help get the word out, and they might even have a connection to help you transfer your produce to the pantry in an easier way. So in the last year, we had a pilot program at 5 sites. Last year we piloted in Lancaster, Dakota, Douglas, Hall, and Scottsbluff counties. We've learned that fresh food will go. Dakota County recommends planting staples like tomatoes, radishes, peppers, zucchini, green beans, carrots, onions, and potatoes, and to think long-term right away. So plant your perennials now, your berries, rhubarb, and asparagus. And there's Marion. You heard her speak earlier. This is Marion Kane in Dakota County. While uncommon items probably won't be your staple garden items, they can be a good opportunity for education. Brenda Sale, who works in Dakota County with Marion, does a great job of educating folks when they have some of the more uncommon items in their gardens. I think they've grown edamame and tomatillos and all sorts of uncommon, I would say, Nebraska items. But when she did education and helped them understand how they could cook it at home, they took it home. And I think that's a great way to get people to increase their fruit and veggie intake. Okay, so I'll pause here again for another discussion. So how does the CHOW project align with your mission as a Master Gardener? So kind of discuss that in your counties again, and then we'll come back. Actually, let me see what time it is. Terry, I think after this discussion, do we go to break? I think we do. So I'll start this discussion and then we'll come back. It'll give you 5 minutes. Okay, thank you. All right. So I know this discussion is between you and break. So we'll try and make it quick, but I am curious to hear some of your answers. I know that the Master Gardener program is always evolving and looking to make changes. So tell me about some of the discussion that you had.
This is Kelly in Platte County.
Uh-huh.
And, here, what we seem to find at the food pantry here is a lot of produce, fresh produce is donated, but nobody wants it because they might have to peel the potatoes and bake them.
Okay.
So, and so we were curious. It sounded like Carol Larvick mentioned that at their food pantry, that's the first thing that goes. They really want it. They really like it. So any suggestions would be appreciated.
Yes, and you're in Platte County, you said.
Yeah, that seems to be an issue there.
Okay.
Another gentleman shared that he shares a lot of stuff with the local mission, and they love it all and take it all and use it.
That's interesting. And is that's still in Platte County?
Yes.
Okay.
Those are just a couple of discussions we had.
All right.
Kelly, this is Carol, and I think one of our big things is when Brenda goes out and actually makes a recipe with some of that food, or cooks it, or takes recipes to them, they're a lot more interested. I know one time the story was she went to the senior center with spaghetti squash, and nobody touched it. And then she talked about what all you could do with spaghetti squash and how to cook it. And then they were asking for more, and it was all gone, and they had a whole table full of it. So I think a lot of it goes with helping them understand how they can use it.
Yeah, thanks, Carol. And that is kind of what we talked about here, almost. But when you said Brenda goes up, does she go to the food pantry and do that, or does she go into the homes and do that, and then they have an interest?
She has done it at the senior center. She's also done some at the food pantry. That was part of the grant that she was on.
Okay.
So if you have somebody that even could volunteer and go, I know I did that. One time I volunteered at a place and went and taught people how to cook something. And so, it was mixed vegetables and just saute them. And then they all wanted it. So I think a lot of times it's helping them. It's those tastes at the grocery store that make us want to buy that product. And I think this is the same kind of thing.
So it sounds like if, a partnership between Master Gardeners helping with the growing and whatnot, but a nutrition education person is key to teaching them how to use it to be successful. Or somebody teaching them how to use it.
Mm-hmm. I do think that is an important part of any program, and especially when you're dealing with fresh produce or something that's new to somebody. Excuse me. So I see that our guests have joined us, but I also know that it's your break time. So I will pause here. Terry, are there any instructions that you have?
I'm going to open up the next poll. So those of you that have gotten on the Slido, you have a new poll to answer, and I will leave that up during the break. If you guys have any comments, please go ahead and enter them either into the chat on the discussion, or I have been watching some of the questions that have come into Slido too, and we will be able to share those. So enjoy your next, how long do you want to go? 15 minutes?
Yeah, that sounds good. I think the next portion will be a little shorter, so they've got some time.
Okay, excellent. And you are set to go.
All right, I'll start by answering some questions we got before the break. So one of the questions was, what is the average amount awarded to the various counties in Nebraska? I would say our average this year was about $3,000, and last year was about $4,000. A lot of our communities have gotten funds from other sources too. There's a few communities who apply for Hy-Vee one-step grants. So I'll type that into the chat box. I'm not sure when those are due again, but it's coming up soon. And those are for $1,000 each. I know Dakota County gets those pretty often. And there are a lot of gardening grants kind of out there just all over the place. And I can send a list that I've compiled to Terry, and she can get it out to you too for that. Usually gardening grants are due in the fall to plan for next spring. So not a lot available right now, but there are also local people who provide funds too. So how would you, as an independent group of community gardeners, donate to a local pantry? And I would say you would start with connecting to your pantry. Sometimes pantries are only open once a month or less than once a week. And so you would need to coordinate with them and see, are they interested in getting produce? I hope they are. And how to arrange that situation. So it really is about building that partnership, I would say. And water expenses has been kind of up to the individual county. The county is willing to pay for it, and it kind of depends on the land that they are on. Terry, what's the situation on campus for that?
We just use campus water.
Okay.
I do know some counties are looking at having to reimburse their county office for whatever they're potentially thinking they're going to need. Some county offices will provide that water for you if you're working with your county. So that would be like one of your, somebody asked about sponsors or partnerships. That would be a partnership also.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And then the last question that I saw was, is educational information required for those that qualify for assistance? And so for SNAP, education is not required to receive that assistance, but for WIC it is. And so because there are so many people on SNAP, it would be pretty hard to educate them all with only the 40 people we have on staff. But we do try and reach as many as we can. And of course, with these environmental pieces, we're reaching a lot more than we have been able to in years past. So I will move on. So the second half of our presentation is about working with pantries, and I hope to answer some of your questions a little more in depth, and hopefully this will shine light on partnering with them. I do have some guests with me, Sarah Comer and Shelly Mann. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And they are with Food Bank for the Heartland, and they can talk to us about the food banking system in Nebraska and kind of the pantry structure. So I'm going to advance this slide. Maybe. It might be frozen. Yep. Oh no. Let me give it a second and see if that responds. All right, let's close the program. We'll open it back up. Sorry about that, everyone.
Do you want to, are you getting it open?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, there you go. I was gonna say, I could share my slide and show your infographic from last year's numbers for the 4 states that participated.
Oh, that's true. I should talk about that at some point. Okay, I'm going to hand it off to Shelly and Sarah, and you guys just let me know when to advance the slides.
Hi, everyone. This is Sarah Comer. I know both Shelly and myself are super excited to have the chance to speak to you guys about what the food bank does. For me, I've worked for the food bank for about 4 years now. I work as a director of network education and compliance. So essentially what I do is I make sure all of our partners across the state are following all the rules, making sure we're following USDA guidelines. And then another part of my job is I oversee all of our child hunger programs. So backpack, kids cruising kitchen, kids cafe, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But I kind of make sure that we follow all of the rules. So Shelly, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Shelly Mann, and I'm the Assistant Director of SNAP for Food Bank for the Heartland and the Food Bank of Lincoln. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that means here in a few minutes. This is my 6th year in food banking. I am a recent Nebraska transplant from the Kansas City area, where I was at the food bank there for about 5 years. So I've also been working with Feeding America for the last 4 years as a capacity advisor, going around and helping other food banks get their SNAP programs off the ground and kind of help them navigate what it looks like to host a program that helps folks with benefits.
And if you guys have any questions at any time, please feel free to use the chat. Both Shelly and I love answering questions, and we could talk about food banking for hours. So if you have any questions, let us know. All right, I think we're ready for the next slide. All right, so the food bank in Lincoln serves the southeastern corner of the state. So kind of just picture the southeast corner from Richardson up to Lancaster and over just a little bit. Lincoln serves that, and then the food bank for the Heartland serves the remainder of the state and part of western Iowa as well. A large part of what the Food Bank for the Heartland does as far as emergency food assistance is working with pantries across the state. So we don't actually donate or we don't actually have any food at the food bank location. What we do is we partner with pantries across the state, with Feeding America, with local growers, with large companies, and kind of get the food distributed out. So we don't actually see a lot of clients face to face. We work primarily with the pantries and our partners statewide. In order to find a pantry, clients can call 211 or can visit any of our food bank websites. But that is our primary function, is to connect local pantries in all of the 93 counties to the food resources. We also have our child hunger program, and I oversee that as well, like I kind of mentioned. And that includes the backpack program, the kids cruising kitchen, and kids cafe. So our backpack program is we send packs of food home with kids on Friday afternoon to help them get through the weekend. So usually it's stuff that kids can open, so like Chef Boyardee meals, South Stable milk, things like that, so that kiddos can have some food over the weekend. And we have that statewide. We partner closely with Woodhouse Auto Family to kind of get that done. And we have a lot of volunteers that come in and pack those specific menus. We also have Kids Cruising Kitchen, which is our summer feeding program. Our focus is kind of the Omaha Metro. So us, along with Salvation Army, have a fleet of food trucks, and we go around the city and we set up shop, and kids can come up and get a free meal, a free, usually hot meal over the summer. So we drive all around. We go to Blair, we go to Plattsmouth, we go to, all over the place. And we do that. We also partner with schools across the state that we can't get to, but we kind of help them with their summer feeding. Then we also have the Kids Cafe program. And Kids Cafe is an after-school light meal or snack where low-income students can come, usually to Boys and Girls Clubs or places after school tutoring, things like that, where they can get a nutritious light meal to kind of help make ends meet and make the meals a little bit more nutritious. As far as the Lincoln service area, which is kind of that bottom corner of the state, which I mentioned before, his name is Jason Helgren. He works with those programs. Lincoln has the backpack program, and they are just starting their Kids Cruising Kitchen this summer. So they work for that program. Yeah, Shelly, you want to talk about SNAP?
Yeah, awesome. So I know that a little bit earlier in the presentation, you guys had talked some about what SNAP is and what role SNAP plays in kind of the safety net. So I just kind of wanted to chime in and give you guys a little bit of insight about some of the things that the food bank does to help with SNAP and SNAP participation. 1/3 of people in Nebraska who qualify for SNAP benefits don't currently receive them. So the Food Bank for the Heartland and the Food Bank for Lincoln actually work together on this to try to get SNAP benefits to those folks that aren't currently receiving them but qualify. And we have 13 full-time people who work on educating folks about SNAP and helping clients who might qualify for SNAP to be able to navigate the process to receive those benefits in both Nebraska and in Iowa. We have a team that works specifically with the state of Iowa as well. We have a call center that is open Monday through Friday that allows folks to call in and apply for SNAP over the phone. We work in partnership with Health and Human Services, so we're actually able to look up information for clients on their cases, and we're able to do those applications right then and there over the phone. And if you are curious about handing out that number on the slide before this one, there's actually the phone numbers are listed there. So if you come across someone who's interested in applying for SNAP, that's the best way to do it. We have staff that host office hours at various helping organizations around Omaha and Lincoln, and in some of the rural communities as well, to help people who might have accessibility issues, like people who are experiencing homelessness, seniors, people who would rather do things face to face. So we also started with partnerships a few years back, and we have 16 partners right now across the state that also help us to do this work. And those partners are all the way out as far as Scotts Bluff and down south and up north. So we span the whole state, and they actually do education and application assistance on site at those pantries, health departments, community actions, things like that. This is a critical part of the food bank's mission to end hunger in Nebraska. While physical food is super important to that mission, we also have an obligation to really help those clients find something more sustainable, and SNAP provides that option for people. The ability for clients to actually choose what food they want so that they can be sure it's something that they have the ability to prepare. I know you guys were talking about that a little bit earlier, or to be sure that it's something that's culturally competent for them. There's also just kind of an element of dignity that goes along with being able to go and purchase that food for themselves. And we really see that as being a core part of our business as a food bank.
So on this slide here, I know someone asked before, how do they find, or how do people find pantries? On this map, and this is on the Food Bank for the Heartland website, it shows you kind of all of the span of our pantries statewide. As obviously there's a lot in Omaha, but it also is spread throughout the state. There are some pockets where we don't have partners, but that does not necessarily mean that there's not a pantry out there. It might be a pantry that we haven't partnered with. As of fiscal year 2017, we provided over 22 million meals for Nebraska and Western Iowa. SNAP was a large portion of that. The food bank knows that while we do the best to shorten the line, we can't do it all with just the traditional pounds, like Shelly said. So SNAP is a vital part of what we do to end hunger and to kind of alleviate hunger in Nebraska. As I said before, Kids Cafe, we have locations in Omaha, Fremont, Carter Lake, Council Bluffs, South Sioux City. KCK is all over the metro area, and then our pantries are entirely statewide. We often get asked kind of what do we need? And to be really honest, we need the staples, but we can do a lot more with a monetary donation than a box of macaroni and cheese. $1 we can usually stretch to make about 3 meals. So while food drives are great and we're super thankful for that, money tends to go the farthest in relieving hunger. But canned chicken, boxed potatoes, all of the stuff that people normally think as shelf-stable foods. All right, Morgan, next slide, please.
Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go.
There we go. Okay. So this is a little bit more about specifically what the Food Bank of Lincoln does. Before I worked for the Food Bank for the Heartland, I worked for the Food Bank of Lincoln, so I have kind of a foot in both camps. One thing that Food Bank of Lincoln and the Food Bank for the Heartland is starting to do is this Bridges Out of Poverty program. And the Bridges program is kind of a citywide initiative that the Food Bank of Lincoln is kind of spearheading, where clients that are experiencing poverty or considered low income go through a class to kind of learn money management skills, learn social skills, kind of like the hidden rules of being middle class. They kind of take into experience all the things that go on with being middle class, just kind of, what am I looking for? They work towards learning more about themselves, their community, all kinds of different things. In addition to the class, the city and choice businesses go through class to kind of see, okay, what does this mean? I'm not explaining this very well. Bridges is very complicated, but essentially it's a model or a framework of research that provides a deeper understanding and a common language of the new culture of poverty. It also provides a platform for innovation, action, and tools for change that can lead to lowering poverty rates. Bridges training provides a deeper understanding of economic class, hidden rules, and mental models that exist within each class. So it's kind of looking at poverty as not just necessarily a you thing, but an us thing. Lincoln also does the Housewarming Project, which helps people moving out of shelters into their own households to shop for groceries. The LKS Emergency Pantry, which is a pantry that's open to Lincoln and Lincoln Public Schools students. And yeah, so kind of the stuff that Lincoln needs, Omaha needs, but again, the donations of income or donations of money also help the most. All right, next slide, please. All right, and then this is kind of the flow of food. So donations come in, whether it's food, funds, and time. We have a wonderful volunteer base that helps us out immensely. We roughly calculated out that the amount of volunteer time that we had in the last fiscal year was equivalent to 25 employees. So volunteers are huge for both food banks, and we are super thankful for any volunteers that we have. So if you have volunteered at the food bank previously, special thanks goes out to you. Sometimes it's individuals, businesses, foundations. The USDA we work really closely with as far as TFAP or emergency food. We get a lot of those, and we distribute that out to our partner agencies. And we also get a lot of organizations that come in and donate their time and their money, which is great. So food bank versus pantry. So we get this a lot. So the food bank collects and distributes food to network partners and direct distribution programs. Pantries are the local brick and mortar places that actually distribute the food. So we get the food at a central location spot, whether it's in Lincoln or Omaha, and then we distribute it out via trucks, via things like that. Then once it gets to distribution, that's where it gets to the end user. So we've got food pantries, shelters like Center for People in Need, open door places like that, schools, which is where we have our kids cafe and other programs, soup kitchens, and then mobile pantries. Mobile pantries is a huge portion of our program here at the food bank. Mobile pantries is we load up a bunch of food on a truck, we drive it around, we set it up, clients can come and get food, no questions asked. We pick it up, we drive to the next place. So we have mobile pantries all over the state. I know we have some in Antelope County. Man, you name it, we probably have a mobile pantry there. We also have school-based mobile pantries where it's kind of the same mobile pantry concept, but it's at a school. And it's usually right after school. So kids can come, parents can come, staff can come if necessary. The community can come as well and get food from the pantry line. We have all types of food, produce, meat, bread, eggs, frozen pizzas. Our focus obviously is working towards nutritious food. So we are working really hard on pushing the produce. And then in addition to child nutrition programs like backpacks and things like that. Food and additional support and programming is provided to people who are struggling with hunger in Nebraska. So the Food Bank for the Heartland has team members that specifically focus on nutrition. So they write recipes, They work closely with the SNAP team to get recipes going off for that. If we have a donation of, say, kohlrabi that we get, they work to write recipes for that so clients can know A, what it is, and B, how to use it. So the food bank also focuses pretty heavily on nutrition awareness. So we focus on that. And really, it's just kind of getting food out where it needs to go. All right, next slide, please. All right, so the pantry structure. The pantry is usually staffed by volunteers with 1 or 2 paid staff. It just depends on the pantry itself, kind of what it needs. There might be a lead staff member. They could be a religious organization, community resources. It just depends on what type of pantry it is. Sometimes they have a large space. Sometimes they have a tiny space. I visited a pantry last month that was in the local community Lions Club. So half of the building was focusing on Lions Club, half of the building was focusing on the pantry. So it just kind of depends. Then you have places like Heart Ministry in Omaha where it is a lot bigger. So it just kind of depends on that.
Hey, Sarah?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Shelly. I was just going to chime in and say, too, you might be surprised at the places in your community that actually have pantries. I think, one of the biggest surprises for me coming into food banking and food bank work was the sort of strategically hidden pantries that exist, whether that's in an elementary school. I was at a college not too long ago, and they had like a hidden pantry that only students who would meet the qualifications for that pantry knew where it was. It just looked like a supply closet, and certain students had keys to it and could go in and get food when they needed it, that sort of thing. So, hospitals, health departments, you just might be surprised where you'd find some of these pantries.
Absolutely. Thank you. There might be, a cranny, who knows? Let's see. Anything I'm missing, Morgan, that you can think of?
Can you go over kind of the type of equipment that a pantry might have or might not have?
Sure. So some pantries have coolers and like refrigerators and chest freezers. Some of them don't. I would say a large majority of them, if they have a freezer or cooler space, it's not very much. So they can't often take huge donations that we can provide, but they can take smaller donations from local goods that might fit better into their space. So a lot of our pantries across the state are working to a medium to small space, depending. But a lot of them do have coolers and freezers that they can take stuff. A lot of them obviously have shelving units and things like that. But it just depends on the pantry and the size of the client base that they're working with, how big usually that they are, and what space that they have.
I'll advance, I think, next. Okay, so this I kind of snuck in there between Shelly and Sarah to talk a little bit about delivering produce to pantries. Kind of like Sarah was saying, every pantry is going to be different. I've been to pantries where it's a trailer within a trailer park, which was actually a really cool idea. And they had a couple of donated fridges with, like a home fridge. So it's got this little bit of freezer space. And they would talk about how they would get this huge donation of meat from a local butcher or something. And they were so happy to get it, but they just didn't know what to do with it before the next service day. So those are things that you have to consider. You'll have to work around their schedule a lot. They might only be able to accept once a week or once a month, depending on the pantry. And if they are largely volunteer-paced, which they probably will be, it might be hard to get a volunteer on a regular basis. So just finding out when they're open, when they have enough staff available to accept the produce, and they might need an extra hand setting it out and making sure that clients are aware of it. Okay, and before, let me see what's next. Okay, so I'll hand it back to you guys.
Sarah, did we lose you?
See if she's still on here.
Got it? Am I here?
Yep, there you go.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Cool. So the best way to kind of find your local partners, head to our website. Food Bank Heartland has an interactive map that I mentioned. Lincoln's Food Bank, we have a couple lists of partners, but you can always give us a call and say, hey, I'm in Platte County. I'm looking for some pantries so that I can donate some produce, or I'm looking to volunteer, or I want to get to know what kind of pantries are in the area. You can always give us a call. We're always happy to connect Master Gardeners with pantries, because I know that the majority of them are incredibly thankful for any education, donations, or support that you guys can give. So we have, I know for Omaha, for Food Bank for the Heartland, we have about 320 agency or pantry partners statewide. So the need is there. A lot of the agencies are there. They are ready and willing usually to take whatever they can get. So the best place to start is just contact the food bank and we'll get you connected with pantries in your area.
All right, let's see here. Okay, I think I will pause there for any questions. We've kind of passed one topic, and before I move on to the next, I want to see if anyone is interested in any other information on the food banking system or pantry structure. Okay, is this back to me then, Sarah and Shelley?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, great. So meeting the needs of your pantry, find out who the clients are. Each county and each service area is going to be a little different. I'm not sure if you know this, but Nebraska is one of the top states in accepting refugees in the last few years. So we've got kind of an influx of a lot of new cultures that might be utilizing these services. And so learning about the types of foods that they would typically eat would really be helpful for the pantry. What's the skill level? It could be anywhere from, like I mentioned before, they don't have kitchen utensils, or maybe they know how to garden themselves. They've been doing it for years and they know how to use all the food. They just don't have a way to do it themselves or a way to access that food. So it really does cross the whole spectrum. How are they getting to the pantry? As part of these grants, we do allow you to purchase bags, like shopping bags, to help the clients pick up the foods that they need and help them get it home, whether it be via walking or bus, or if they have a car or a friend's car, just anything we can do to help them get that food back to the home. And then health needs. We have one of our participating sites in Hall County works with a local health department, and the nurse there has noted that she has a lot of diabetic patients who utilize food access services. And she actually noted that the blood glucose levels of her clients have been kind of stabilizing and dropping, and she attributes it to this CHOW program. So learning about client needs, do they want more fresh greens, things like that. So I do kind of want to touch on cultural awareness. This might be a new area for a lot of you to work in, and it might be something that's unfamiliar to you. So for example, Dakota County has a high Hispanic population, so they like to grow a lot of tomatoes, onions, cilantro, tomatillos, zucchini. Those things go fast and the clients love it. Lancaster County has a large Vietnamese population. We get a lot of requests for cabbage and lemongrass, onions, and cilantro. So kind of consider what the population is like in your county. What would the pantries like to see? And maybe it's unfamiliar to you. I don't know how many of you grow lemongrass on a regular basis, but it goes like crazy here in Lancaster County. And you know, especially depending on the pantry, but they really do love it here. So I have a few resources for you, and I actually think we have time to use one of those. So common complaints that I hear from volunteers who work with low-income people include maybe judging the cars that they drive, or pointing out that they smoke, and guessing whether or not they're taking advantage of those resources. And I just kind of wanted to emphasize that smoking or driving a specific type of car doesn't mean that someone doesn't want or need or deserve access to healthy food options. Yeah, maybe some people, maybe there is abuse in the system, but most people are very thankful and grateful for the work that you do. And it's kind of not our job to determine who is or is not abusing the system. Our mission is really to help those who ask for it. And SNAP Ed funds are meant to go towards education and spreading healthy food. And I'm happy to give fruits and vegetables to whoever asks for it. A few of the links that I have here are actually NEB guides, so you can access those at any time. That's the Understanding, Identifying, and Addressing Microaggressions and Cultural Competence. Code Switch is actually a nice little bunch of videos and things that you can find online. It kind of talks about different cultures and what it's like to live in certain places. Got some interesting videos there. And the one thing that I think I'd like us all to do now is take the implicit bias test. So if you're not familiar with implicit bias, one of the easiest ways that I've had it explained to me is, so there are, I think it's like 70% of CEOs of Fortune 500 companies are males over 6 feet tall. So does being a male over 6 feet tall mean that you're better at being a CEO? Well, of course not. But that's something that it's a bias that you're unaware that you have kind of as a society. And so Harvard put together this test that you can take. So if you follow that link, you can use your cell phone. And I'll do it with you here to make sure that we're sticking on time. So let me see here. So once you go to, if you just kind of type implicit.harvard.edu, and then it'll ask you where you're at, so you'll choose the United States. It'll say that this is data that they'll use once in a while, but it's not going to be connected directly to you. So you'll continue on. Then there's all sorts of bias-y tests that you can take. And I think today we're going to take the weight bias. So before I continue, are there any questions? Has everyone gotten on their phone and gotten to it? Let me see here. I'll open the chat. And this will just take a few minutes. I would recommend taking it if you open a new tab on your phone, you're probably using an internet browser. You should have the ability to open a new tab and start this one. So it'll just take a few minutes. Some pictures will pop up and it'll ask you to kind of associate them with other things. Sure, I can try and walk you through. So I've just gotten onto the screen and I'm going to hit the weight screen test. Is anyone here? I'll actually, let's see what happens when I open the link. There you go. So this screen should pop up. And I'll say I wish to proceed. And the weight test is what I will take. There's all sorts of different tests you can take if you're interested on anything else. See, I'll X out of that. So it's going to ask you to sort pictures and words into groups as fast as you can. It's kind of a don't think, just act type of thing. And then once you're done, it's going to tell you where your biases lie. So it'll ask questions like this and it'll show pictures. But I'll give everyone about 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to go through that. And then I'll kind of pop back in and we'll talk about what you thought, or if you were surprised. You, of course, don't have to share your score, but I think it's always good to go through something like this. right, so I've gotten through mine. Hopefully you've gotten through yours or most of it. But it's kind of an interesting thing that kind of helps you see where some of your thoughts might lie. Does anyone have any questions or opinions based around that? Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left. We will probably get done a little sooner. So if you're new to working with pantries and their clients, I have 6 strategies. These were provided by Iowa State to help you feel more comfortable in this new role. So the first strategy is to understand the reality of the pantry clients. Their priorities are going to be different from ours. So for example, getting enough food or paying the electric bill are going to take priority over health. Those are immediate needs. It's possible that pantry clients are less familiar with preparing and eating fresh fruits and vegetables, depending on their life experience. They may have little confidence in food preparation in general, but your extension nutrition educator can help you with that. Partner with other agencies that provide services to low-income families. Referrals from major agencies in your community can make the best connections. These resources are available to the community, and we want them to reach those who need them. They may have volunteers that would like to help you in the garden, or they may just want to be informed about the project in order to connect their clients with you. When you're providing education or answering questions, remember to focus on immediacy and practicality. What steps can this person take today that will make a difference in their life? What or who do they need in order to carry this out? And as I mentioned earlier, try to avoid passing judgment. You never know what could be happening in someone's life. So remember, when you're providing educational materials, to make sure they're at a 5th grade reading level or slightly lower. That's kind of the general guide for any educational program, extension-wide. And I understand that not all languages can be reached, but provide pictures and symbols as a part of your materials and make sure there's plenty of white space. Pictures can stretch far more languages than we ever could. If you do have resources to have your materials translated, it's a really appreciated service that we as Extension could offer. And if there are resources that you'd like to share with the group, you can email them to me, and I'll put my email in the chat box before we end tonight. Or if you're a project partner, you can add them to the box folder that was created for the CHOW participating sites. Some of you might not have access to that folder quite yet, but I'll make sure that you do really soon. And then finally, embrace the participants' experiences. Some might like to tell you their stories and bring their experiences to the situation. They might share their challenges with you, and they might just be looking for someone to listen. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of the projects that we had in the last year. So last year was our pilot year. It was our first year, and we were in 5 counties. Community gardening projects in those counties have stemmed into full community councils and coalitions that address food insecurity in many ways. So in Dakota County, like I mentioned before, the Voices for Food Council has gotten the attention of Tyson Foods at the national level. Their local government, local schools, and businesses who are just excited to become a part of the effort. They're provided with local donations of goods, services, and cash to continue their work. In Grand Island, a local school donated land for their community garden. The project lead connected with the local health clinic nurse that I mentioned before. And like I said, her diabetic patients' blood sugar levels started to go down and kind of level out. And she attributed it to the community garden project, which is awesome. And for those of you who might not have seen it, I have the Backyard Farmer video from last year. They did a human interest story with their partner, Produce from the Heart, so I'll play that for you now.
a nutshell, what we do is we act as the bridge between producers like farmers, community gardens, even small gardens, where they're bridged to donation agencies such as Food Bank, Food Net, the Gathering Place, any type of a free distribution center for individuals experiencing hunger.
Connecting with Produce from the Heart really gives us a chance to provide resources and just make more connections with people. So we might know the food pantries, or we might know, say, the backyard farmer garden who needs to get their produce somewhere. They just don't know how to do it. And so that's how you bring in Produce from the Heart.
And what's really cool is that we can grow the produce, then NEP can come in and actually give really good recommendations on how to use that produce that we are growing. And having Produce from the Heart work with us and to pick up that produce and take it to where it's really needed has been a great benefit.
If anything, it's that perfect storm period right now for this type of an organization, that we have people who want to donate, we have people who want to help collect that produce, we have people who want to help deliver it to places in need, and unfortunately we have a lot of people who need it.
He's at a food bank each day helping distribute or bringing in produce. If he's not doing that, then he's probably on a weekend going to a farm, picking up all that extra produce and taking it where it needs to go.
Mike brings to the table the knowledge of that food pantry, which we never really actually had. So he knows who needs it, what they need, and it's much more beneficial for us to know that it's actually going to where it will be wanted.
Communicating to the farmers that you don't have to throw it away anymore. There is an organization that work with us will find a way to make sure that we can get it to someone who needs it.
Growing an extra row is always a good idea. If you have extra produce, and we all do, those of us who have gardens, so bringing that into the backyard farmer garden on Tuesday nights or Saturday mornings, so that can be taken to people who can eat it.
I think, Backyard Farmer is 65 years old this year, and it's kind of a great way to celebrate knowing that we're helping them. They're growing the best produce they possibly can. They're growing in abundance, and having NEP, SNAP-Ed, and Produce from the Heart, it does just completely align. I mean, they teach people how to take that produce that we are growing, how to use it, what great nutritional values that has, and then having Produce from the Heart being able to actually distribute that to the local areas has just, it's kind of the stars all aligned the right way.
That relationship that we have with clients and with recipients is really strong, and really, like I said, it keeps most of us going.
Okay, so I don't think I'll set the timer for this. I'd kind of just like to open it up for discussion. I think we still have Sarah and Shelley on. If you have any questions for the food banks or about the food banking system, we can open that up. And any other questions or just discussion? Thank you, everyone. I do have, I see one question came through. Do we teach the less fortunate how to garden? That's a good question. So that's something, this program is actually something that began in Iowa, and they call it Growing Together. And they started off doing that, and they learned that a lot of the low-income folks either didn't have time to garden or just didn't have the space or interest to do it. There are some who are interested and do have the space. And so some of our gardens that have applied this year do have that in their plan to teach gardening at their community gardens for those who are interested. But as a general rule, it's not something that we've gotten a whole lot of interest in from the SNAP Ed population. And share more about the Healthier Pantries pilot. Yes, so that pilot is called Voices for Food. I believe it's in two counties here in Nebraska. It's actually a multi-state pilot with South Dakota and a few other states that I can't remember right now. But it is in its last year, and they have actually asked for a no-cost extension on their grant. So that should go through the end of this year. They're almost done with that, and they're going to create this wonderful toolkit on how to work with pantries and get them to procure healthier items, and kind of talk about how to support them, materials that we can supply to them that would point pantry clients to the healthier items on the shelves and encourage those things. One of the things that Vanessa Willinga, my counterpart, is working on are just basic pantry materials called Find Healthy Here. So she has a program called Choose Healthy Here, and that is for grocery stores. But when you go into pantries, we like to say Find Healthy Here because they might not have all healthy items, but we know that we can find some things to encourage some of our clients to take. So hopefully those things will all be released by next year's grant cycle. So when I release the next grants in December, hopefully all of that stuff will become available. And Dr. Lisa Franzen-Castle, our extension specialist in nutrition, is working on those efforts right now.
Do you have any more questions? Well, I did open the next poll, so if those of you that were using Slido, if you could answer the next question, and then I'm hoping you can see the next slide up on saying what we're going to do next week, and that is rots and spots. And I want to thank Morgan for doing a very long distance Zoom session with us.
Thank you all. I was so happy to be invited to speak to you. I love my master gardeners. And I love working with you.
I will send to the listserv of the coordinators, I will send those links that Morgan provided tonight, tomorrow morning, and that way you can share those with your master gardeners. So, any other questions? Then I am signing out for the evening, and I will virtually see all of you next week.